Hi everyone and welcome to a new season of reviews here on Theme Park Worldwide. In this video I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on Hero, a flying roller coaster which is located at Flamingo Land in North Yorkshire here in the United Kingdom. Now Hero opened in 2013 and is a Zamperla Volare roller coaster featuring the standard 391 metre layout. So this is a standard ride that can be bought from Zamperla and of course this is the standard 391 metre version that has been sold in a lot of places around the world. Now, with these reviews that I filmed last year here on the channel in the series so far, they've all been pretty positive and about rides that I really enjoy. This one is going to be very different to that because I'm actually going into more detail about why I'm not really a big fan of Hero. If you've watched the vlogs from Flamingo Land, you'll know that I'm not a huge fan of this ride at all. And I really wanted to film one of these reviews and sit down and talk a bit more in detail about the ride and also the reasons why I don't enjoy it. In fact, it's one of my least favourite roller coasters I've ever been on. Not just Hero, but that ride in general, the Zamperla Volare. I used to actually call it Zamperla Volare, but after speaking with Zamperla themselves over at IAPA a couple of years ago in Florida, with there being an Italian company, they confirmed to me that it is Volare. That's how we say the name of this one, with it being Italian. Should have guessed that really in the first place, but you learn these things, don't you, over time. So let's go into the detail with this. So like I say, this ride opened in 2013. It's located quite near to the entrance really of Flamingo Land. You walk in past the pirate stage and a couple of smaller rides, and then you're in the Metropolis themed area. Now Metropolis is home to Velocity, the Vekoma booster bike, which is a much better coaster in my opinion. You've got a couple of flat rides there as well, and then it's there just greeting you, Hero, with its very bright colour scheme. Now the area around here is pretty bright in general, but you look over at this ride and you've got this ginormous orange sign. Don't get me wrong, the coaster's a lot darker colours. It's got a black track with silver supports, but yeah, you've got this huge signage, this entrance archway into the queue line, and then you've got the spiral Liftail just behind it. From an off-ride perspective, it doesn't actually look too bad. You know, the fact that yeah, you've got this pretty impressive actually spiral Liftail. That is my favourite part of the ride, mainly because you're not being bumped about and jerked in all sorts of positions that you certainly don't want to be in. But yeah, from an off-ride perspective, it doesn't look too bad. The ride doesn't really feature any theming other than the entrance, but like I say, it's got quite a modern, vibrant feel to it, the whole Metropolis themed area at Flamingo Land. Now, of course, in terms of the ride's theme with this, it's a flying coaster. It's based on being a hero and flying, basically. However, you're a hero to actually survive this thing when you come off with how rough it is, honestly. But anyway, you enter the queue line, which is where the experience begins, and there's not any theming to look at. It's a pretty bog standard queue line, just like silver fences, bit of cattle pen queue, and then you start to gradually raise up a little bit on ramps which takes you actually to the station. Now even the station for Hero doesn't feature any theming. It's actually an outdoor station. It's got a roof over, but it's got no walls, no sides to it, but it's quite a long station, and that's just because of the loading procedure on this ride and how it works. Now this is a very different style flying coaster compared to those manufactured by B&M, of course, Bolliger and Mabillard. Along with that as well, Vekoma there, new style flying coasters. This is very different how it works, and I'm going to explain that for you now for those of you that have never been on Hero or just a Zamperla Volare flying coaster anywhere around the world, because there is quite a lot of them now. So how this works is the ride vehicle is actually moving through the station, which is quite an interesting design from a safety point of view. But it's actually moving the train through the station, and then you literally step onto. It's like a step ladder. Imagine that you're doing some work at home. You know, you've got a step ladder out to put your Christmas decorations on your ceiling. It's literally like that. You climb up these steps, and then you step forward into it. You rest your chin sort of on the on this restraint, with this plastic restraint, which is not nice at all, but you're kind of stepping forward into it, so you're still up in that standing position at this point but slightly leaning forward, and then this bar comes down behind you which locks you into place. Now this bar is not very comfortable at all, as you'll find out as my review progresses later on with this style of ride. And this isn't just Hero, this is this ride in general from Zamperla. Now in terms of the actual trains on this. Each one can actually stand 4 riders on there, all next to each other. There's 1 car per train. So yeah, you're all standing in a line, 4 of you next to each other. Sort of 2, if you like, on each side of the middle sort of chassis to the train. You know, so you kind of, yeah, you want to pick your best friend to go next to, you know, if you're on either side of that one. But yeah, so you're stepping into it whilst it's moving, which I do find really odd. Honestly, the fact that it doesn't stop, I do find it a little bit concerning. But anyway, you're then sort of still in that position. You've not actually gone up into the flying position yet. But then as it gets to the end, before you start to go up this spiral Liftail at the end of the station, it then raises you up into that flying position. So yeah, it's certainly a very interesting way of doing it. My favourite type of flying coaster now is, of course, the new generation Vekoma flying coasters like Fly at Fantasia Land, and how that works, where it actually twists you into the position during an inversion, which is epic. And of course, even the B&M versions are a lot better than this, sitting down normally and then tilting up into the position. But yeah, it just doesn't feel quite right, really, with how this works on Hero. So you've dispatched from the station and you're looking at this, what is actually the most impressive part of the ride, in my opinion, the spiral Liftail. You start to make your way up to the maximum height on this, which is about 15 meters, that's 50 foot tall, and you spiral around a few times going up. To be honest, at this point, you're thinking it's not going to be too bad. It's pretty smooth. How this works is really interesting because you've got this mechanism in the middle that actually keeps spinning round, and it's kind of pushing the train up the Liftail, which is quite interesting actually. A very different way of doing it compared to like a normal like chain Liftail or launch or something like that. You know, it's actually being pushed up with this mechanism. Of course, you're thinking, well, it's not too rough at the moment, but I'm hoping it's going to be smooth because, you know, I'm on this ride and you're just covered with plastic all around. I think that's the problem with it. Like, there's just not enough padding in the seats. Like, you've got your chins to kind of rest on a piece of plastic. You've got a couple of bars in front of you to kind of hold on to, but they're quite hard to reach. And you're in like a cage. Like, you literally feel like a cage is being put on like a train track with inversions. That's how it feels. You know, and you're holding onto this bar. You got these bars in front of you on the cage. You feel really trapped in. Like, you're not exposed on this ride at all, which is part of the problem. Like, you know, you don't feel like you're actually flying because you're that trapped into this thing. But anyway, the moment comes, you get to the top of the Liftail. You get a view of hundreds of caravans, of course, that Flamingo Land have got. And then you leave that Liftail through a little bit of a straight section, which is a block break, and then you're straight down into the first drop, and then kind of back up and left into a 180-degree turn. And that is when you start to realise how painful this ride is going to be. That turn is awful, and that's right at the start of the ride. You know, you're really at the top of this ride, you know, 50 foot, 15 metres up, you know, so it's not really built up that much speed yet. But at this point, it's starting to be uncomfortable. Of course, it then continues round straight from that into the first inversion on this ride, the first barrel roll. There's 2 of those to experience on the ride that, yeah, are not very enjoyable. And of course, when you're going through these inversions on this, with the restraint system and with it being a lot of plastic around it, and it's just not very comfortable, you've got to bear in mind, there's actually quite a lot of leeway behind you. The way this restraint comes down on your back, it's kind of like metal bars, but then there's a big gap, probably about this much. Obviously, it depends on what size you are riding this, how tall you are and that sort of thing. But for me, I find there's a big gap at the back. So it actually means that through these inversions, I can feel like my spine, like stretching, like, yeah, it's just not comfortable at all when you're going through both of the inversions. The first one's a little bit more bearable than the second one, but whew, blimey, yeah, going up into that first inversion is not great at all. Then following on from that, you're straight into a 180-degree turn, but this time to the right, of course, gradually getting lower and lower on the overall structure of Hero. But yeah, you go into that turn straight after that inversion and you just feel the train jolt, and you can see it in the on-ride footage that I took here from last year. You just feel the train just jolt on there, and it's absolutely awful. It really is. Following on from that, you go through another bit of a mid-course brake run before it dips straight back down and then back up into another 180-degree right turn, twisting you straight back round the other way. And again, on these turns, it's building up more speed every time, and it's getting more and more uncomfortable as the ride goes on. Following on from this, you're straight into that second inversion, this time the other way, another one of them heartline rolls. And this, again, has built up quite a bit of speed by this point. And like I say, you just feel like your back's going to snap in half. That is how it feels on this ride going into there. I think for me, it's more the design of the trains than it is the layout of the track that is the problem. Again, it all depends on your build, how tall you are with going on something like this. But for me, I just find it one of the most uncomfortable roller coasters I've ever been on. Like, out of 27 years now riding these rides, and honestly going on that, it's horrible. It really is. Don't enjoy the experience at all. Following on from that second inversion, you're in another 180-degree turn round to the side. The track dips down again through another mid-course, and at this point you're thinking, blimey, I've survived them 2 inversions, fingers crossed I'm going to make it now and until the end of this ride. And then you're straight into a downward left turn into 2 like S-bends at this point. This is like your final element, so to speak, on the ride. A couple of S-bends that are pretty uncomfortable, I'll be honest. And then the ride ends with a 90-degree turn into the final brake run, where you're just relieved to still be breathing and still be alive, to be honest, or at least that's how I feel. My body's been rattled about that much. It feels like my spine was just going to snap in half. My chin's uncomfortable leaning on the side. Honestly, the whole thing is just awful. So yeah, that's kind of the ride experience for me. But like I say, in terms of how the ride has been designed, I don't really think it's the track layout that is the problem. It's more the actual trains, and also as well the safety concerns with the loading procedure. I mean, stepping onto a moving vehicle as it's going through a station just doesn't seem right, does it? It doesn't matter too much if it was going really slow, but anyone that's been on it will know that it moves at quite a pace through the station still. Really surprising. You got to bear in mind, not everybody gets on it whilst it's still moving. It all depends on how the ride's running round. If they've got a few stacked up, then yeah, you might get on it whilst it's sat still. But a lot of the time when I've been on it, they're getting the trains out pretty constantly. And yeah, you're getting onto it whilst it's moving, and you're literally putting your bags down and getting onto the ride. But yeah, it's just not enjoyable at all, this thing. It's really not. Like I say, the ride itself might only be 15 meters tall. That's 50 feet. But it picks up quite a bit of speed as it's going down throughout it. It has got a top speed of 25 miles an hour, which you might think doesn't sound like much, but when you're on something like this and it's just rattling in your bones about so much on every corner, and the layout's pretty compact as well, going into these corners and the transitions, it really is uncomfortable, and it's one of my least favourite ride experiences out there. But there we go. In terms of what they could do to improve it, bring back the ride that used to be there, in my opinion. They used to have a really nice Wild Mouse on there. It now operates as Marble Madness at Pleasurewood Hills, actually, in Lowestoft. So if you're going over that way, go and have a ride on it. Much better, in my opinion, than what Flamingo Land replaced it with Hero. But I know there is some people out there that don't find it that bad. So let me know your thoughts. Do you agree with me? Do you find it awful? Would you rather it just not be there and be like a picnic area like I would? Or do you think, no, you know what? I don't think it's too bad. Sean's over-exaggerating. Let me know your thoughts down below in the video comments. I would love to know. And of course, over the next few weeks, there's going to be a lot more reviews in this brand new season of this series coming up here on the channel. Thanks for joining me, Sean Sandbrook, here on Theme Park Worldwide. Lots of new videos have been uploaded over the past few days, and that's set to continue. There's new series, new videos, reviews, and so much more. Thank you very much for watching, and get out there and keep on riding. See you soon.